Hello, and welcome to Animal Chiropractic Clinic Chatter, a podcast where Dr. O from All Creatures Every Spine interviews doctors and animal owners that utilize animal chiropractic to get their unique perspectives. Yes, it's really a thing. Dr. O utilizes his 30 years of experience as both an animal chiropractor and veterinarian, and to dig deep into the discussion of complex issues affecting the lives of your animal friends and companions. Join us for this educational episode. Thanks for joining us for this portion of the episode as Dr. O begins to answer the question, what is animal chiropractic? He will look at how the chiropractic adjustment is a valuable and viable treatment for what ails your animals.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Animal Chiropractic Clinic Chatter. What is animal chiropractic? Animal chiropractic is an alternative modality, an alternative health modality that utilizes the body's inherent ability to heal itself. I know, heal itself. You know what? Drugs don't heal the body. Band-Aids don't heal the body. Medications, acupuncture needles. But what happens is the body heals itself. We're all born with innate ability. Every body is born with the innate ability to heal itself. That's what makes 2 cells become 8, become 72, become a million, become 32 trillion cells. My 32 trillion cells don't look anything like your 32 trillion cells, but it's because of the innate ability. It's innate intelligence. It's what makes you look like you, me look like me, your dog look like your dog, somebody else's dog look like somebody else's dog. It's the innate inheritance. It's in our bodies. We're born with it. The body heals above, down, inside out. Is chiropractic care for everybody? No. Would it help everybody? Yes. We need to educate everybody about chiropractic care because we need to be able to make educated choices, educated healthcare choices. We've heard how dangerous chiropractic is. We've heard that people die from chiropractic care. You know what? 1 in a million people die from chiropractic care. 1 in 1,000 people die from a stress test. 1 in 2,500 die from an angiocath. 1 in a million die from a chiropractic adjustment. A huge difference. And in fact, the number 1 cause of death from chiropractic care is if you have a dissecting aneurysm in your neck, the first sign is neck pain. 1 in a million people die if you have that. Guess what? If you go to a traditional doctor, your chances of dying are 1 in a million. So if you have a dissecting aneurysm in your neck, your chances of dying are 1 in a million. And it doesn't matter what healthcare modality you choose. So, chiropractic care, safe or dangerous? The media would like us to think it's dangerous, but it is probably the safest one out there. Follow the dollar signs. Chiropractic adjustment, depending on whether your insurance covers it or not, but even if you have a copay, it's going to be less than $100. Go to the doctor. You're going to be spending a lot of money. So, and then they're going to have you on drugs. Reason they want you on drugs, so they can get you on more drugs. The reason I want to put your pet on a drug is because you'll continue to use it. If I adjust your dog, he'll feel better. Yep, I want to get him addicted to chiropractic care. It's a safe alternative method with very few side effects. And in fact, the biggest side effects are your dog will feel better. He'll have more energy. No downside. Thanks. Remember, the body heals one way, one will only. Above, down, inside out. Thank you much.
Make sure to visit our website, allcreatureseveryspine.com, where you can subscribe to the show and learn more about getting your animals adjusted. If you are in the Meridian, Texas area, drop in on a Tuesday afternoon to get your animals adjusted. If that isn't possible, schedule a consultation on your animal's health with Dr. O. You can also purchase a copy of Dr. O's book, Yes, It's Really a Thing.
Standard Process is a third-generation family-owned company in rural Wisconsin. You could say we just make nutritional supplements, but we know we're changing lives. We grow ingredients on our own certified organic farm without pesticides or herbicides because we think they should be as close to nature as possible. Quality is our priority. That's why we do everything right here, from hand-picking the seeds to delivery, so you know exactly what goes into every bottle.
Your active dog needs more than water to rehydrate. Replenish Dog Water Supplement is an all-natural powdered water flavoring, prevents dehydration and provides vitamins for your dog. Created by a veterinarian and rooted in science. Give your dog the care they deserve with Replenish.
What is going on, everyone? My name is Stan Smith. I'm the CEO of X-Dog and the inventor of the X-Dog Weight and Fitness Vest. What is the X-Dog Weight and Fitness Vest? In a nutshell, it is the world's greatest harness for dogs. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're looking to build muscle, combat obesity, address anxiety issues, high energy, you want to suppress that energy level. If you just want to take the average walk and turning into a health improving workout, we made it so convenient to exercise your dog that you literally only need about 30 seconds a day. It doesn't matter if you're doing basic obedience training or compete at high level dog sports or in protection sports. The X-Dog Weight and Fitness Vest can enhance it and take any type of daily lifestyle to the next level. If you want to be part of our mission of eliminating canine obesity or just being a part of our team, make sure you go to teamxdog.com. As always, man, I want to thank you for your time and your support, and Team X-Dog strong.
Join us as Dr. O interviews a certified chiropractor, veterinarian, or an animal owner. These enthusiastic people explain how they utilize animal chiropractic to alter the lives of the animals in their communities.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Animal Chiropractic Clinic Chatter. I'm your host, Dr. O. This is Dr. Grant. Dr. Grant, tell me about, I know, we've been talking on and off here. You told me about Great Pyrenees you saw.
Yes, I saw the Great Pyrenees. That was one of my big wins. That particular person had spent $6,500 at CSU with no results, which is a vet clinic out here in Fort Collins, Colorado. I took school. And I convinced the guy to work on the dog 4 times. He'd been through some significant life trauma, so a lot of things had gone bad for him. And when I adjusted the dog the first time and explained to him how it was going to work and why it may take a few visits, he didn't pay any attention to me. Then he brought the dog back in, and it was like 50% better, but to him it didn't look any better. So we talked about in the past, like, people don't really realize that their dog is better until it's all the way better. And I talked to him into coming in 4 times within a month, and then I didn't see him again, and I knew the dog had gotten significantly better. Then he brought the dog back in 6 months later, and or not 6 months, 6 weeks later, and brought him in and said, I still don't understand how it works, which he obviously didn't listen to, how the nervous system controls the body every time I told him, and healing processes and all that stuff. But he said the dog's 100% better, and I think maybe we should check it again, And I haven't seen that dog in about a year now. So that was one of my big wins. We also talked about the horse that couldn't lift his head up. And when I went back out there and talked to her, they, in addition to the vet just giving it some anti-inflammatories and telling them that there was something wrong with the upper cervical spine, they thought, and not doing anything about it or suggesting chiropractic, they called me. And I went out there, adjusted the horse's atlas, and it lifted its head up and shook its head around, and the guy came out and I was already done, and he's like, holy shit, you're already done? It's 100% better. It's still 100% better, because I ran into him the other day. They also, it was give it anti-inflammatories, see if it gets better. If it doesn't, we're going to have to put it down.
We see that, and the ones I hate are the ones that were a little bit off when they go to the vet, and then they get given anti-inflammatories or some kind of a drug, and now they're worse.
Right.
Now they can't walk at all. And a lot of times they'll come in and it's like, well, all right, so when was the last time we had the drug? And it's like, oh, well, we're still giving it. I'm like, all right, so you do realize we just talked when we, made this appointment for today. We talked about how this was making your dog worse. Well, yeah, but I didn't really believe it. I don't know who you are, and I don't know, like, and trust you yet.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And so we Google side effects, and literally Google side effects, take a screenshot and show it to them. And they're like, yeah, that's what he was doing. And now it's getting worse. And I said, well, that's the side effects of the drugs you're on. And they'll just look at me and go, huh? Why?
Yeah, right. That gives me I've done that with humans before when it comes, as a chiropractor, I can't give pharmaceutical advice.
Right.
As a chiropractor in the scope of practice in Colorado, I can't test your dog's ACL and say, you know what, it doesn't feel torn to me. But I can tell you that of the 25 dogs that have come in with a severe rear end lameness and have an ACL diagnosis, 25 of them have gotten 100% better without surgery.
Right.
Ding, you just saved $6,000. Okay, what did they do when they get in there and realize that the ACL is not torn? So back up, charge you $6,000 and say, sorry about that. I'm sure it'll heal on its own. That's one of them that I can't even.
Yeah.
And that and the hip dysplasia, they give it the hip dysplasia diagnosis. A 2-year-old shepherd, and the woman lives on the second story of an apartment. She can't carry that shepherd up the stairs. Goes to the vet, gets a diagnosis of hip dysplasia. I'm like, you know what? It probably doesn't have hip dysplasia. It's 2 years old. We're all going to get arthritis at some point in time. It doesn't have to hurt, And
Right.
you adjusted the dog once. He's been fine ever since. And all those little shepherds, the hip dysplasia, I run around talking to people about that. I'm like, it's not hip dysplasia, it's sciatica. Its sacral segment is out of whack, and there's pain shooting down its legs. That's why it's having trouble walking. And if you leave it go long enough, then it starts to affect muscle function and tone, and then bladder function and bowel function, and all that stuff improves. Same with the incontinence. Usually S3, it seems like on dogs, incontinence, all of a sudden they're 100% better, and then they're off the drugs. But thank you for the advice on the Google with the side effects, because then I can just say I can't advise you. However, what you should do is Google it and make your own decision on what this is.
Right. And I do that for all my dog patients, right? But I never did it for my son.
Right.
My autistic son that had a seizure disorder.
Right.
And I so regret that I never Googled the side effects of his medication, because his anti-seizure medication, one of the side effects was seizures.
Seizures, right.
And I'm like,
and you gotta, that's like a lot of these people, when I tell them what could happen, they have a flashback to their last animal, or, and I got to tell them, like, you got to give yourself grace. You love that thing unconditionally, and you did what you thought was the best you could do for them. And it's
right.
When you love something that much, like your pet or your child, it sort of shuts off some of your cognitive ability to think, chiropractic,
Yeah.
Let's try this, or let's look at this. You're just, it's difficult. That's a difficult place to be, but you're right.
Yeah, but now I go to the chiropractor no matter what. We go to the chiropractor first.
Yeah.
And I say, I sure am glad my chiropractor takes walk-ins, and he laughs, I mean, we have a regular appointment, but, stuff happens, right?
Right. Yeah, I have people walk in all the time, which is actually kind of fun. I like that.
I got bit by a dog one time in 32 years, got bit by a dog. It was a dog that couldn't bite. It was supposed to bite. It was a protection dog, right?
Uh-huh.
It couldn't bite. And anyway, it bit. I said, this is going to hurt. Do you think we need to muzzle him? And the handler goes, no, I got him. And so I adjusted him, and he yelped, and I let go and turned around, and the handler let go, and all of a sudden the dog was on my arm.
Huh.
Normally, once the initial thing is over, they're fine, right?
They're super happy. Yeah.
Yeah, this guy was like, "Oh, look, it works."
Yeah, I know. He was super happy. That's what I was thinking. Now he can do his job.
Yeah, now I can do my job. So he bit me. Luckily, he was so well trained that as soon as it happened, that the handler was just like plots, and he dropped off my arm. But it was still, and so of course they were like, "Oh my God, we got to quit." And I'm like, "No, we got to finish while we're here." We had like 12 more dogs to do that day, so we adjusted 12 more dogs. And as I'm coming home, I thought, well, I ought to get adjusted because my low neck hurts a little bit because I thought it was because I jerked. And
Yeah.
it was because my radius was way out of alignment. But anyway,
Okay.
I go in and, there's a waiting room full of people and I guess I was dripping blood.
Right. Didn't know it. Kept going.
Yeah. Anyway, I get in there and the receptionist goes, "Are you all right?" And I said, yeah, I'm all right. She goes, "Well, you look a little," and I said, "Oh, yeah." And so I raised, she goes, "Let's go in the other room."
We don't do stitches here.
Yeah, they didn't let me sit in the waiting room.
Yeah.
And then Doc comes in and he goes, "What's up?" And he said, I said, "Yeah, I think my low neck is out." And so he adjusts. "Well, your atlas is out." He adjusted it. He said, "Let me check your elbow." And so he manipulated it. And anyway, week later, everything was healed up. Everything was fine. And, no problems. But
the closest I've come to getting bit was the dog we talked about, that the person had spent $4,500, and I had consulted with him 6 months prior to that. And he didn't bring the dog in, and he wished he would have, because the dog, we talked about it, it had hemifacial paralysis on one side. So, and it had that for a long time. They adopted it. So it had that, and it was lame in the front end, and its C6 was super out. And he started growling, and this is a big guy holding on to him, and he's got him by both sides of the collar. And I said, "Is he a biter?" And he says, "No, he's a talker." Well, and he is a talker. He does a lot of talking when he gets adjusted now. But I hit that C6 and he turned so fast. And luckily I have a tool belt where I wear a little meter, and then I have an activator in there. He hit that and the activator flew out and hit the door. And then the guy was still holding on to him. I said, "You can let him go now." And he looked at me like, "Are you sure?" And he let that dog go, and he came over and just started rubbing all over on me. And like I told Dr. Bill before, the hemifacial paralysis went away completely in, I don't know, probably 5 adjustments over a 2-month period. And the dog can now run and not much less walk. It still has a little bit of a limp, but that keeps getting better. They bring it in about every 6 weeks now, just to keep it tuned up. But as that nerve is healing and coming back to life, the muscles are all coming back, and eventually it's not going to have any limp at all, which is cool. It's pretty cool. Yeah. But yeah, that's the closest I got to getting bit. But now when I adjust that dog, I muzzle him and he sits there, and the people in the waiting room are always, they watch because they think it's neat, and it sounds like the dog is going to try to eat me because he's the whole time. And then inevitably, one person in the waiting area will always say, "But look at him, he's wagging his tail like crazy." I mean, he's happy as hell. He just doesn't want to deal with what might hurt, when we do fix him. And as soon as we're done, he runs around, and they do hot laps in the office as soon as you're done adjusting them. I mean, the owners that pay attention to their dogs can immediately tell. I had someone ask me an interesting question the other day, and then they brought their dog in, and I haven't seen them for a follow-up yet. But I'd known him for a long time, but he just started in my office. And he asked me how it was going, and I was telling him about it because I talk to everyone about the animal chiropractic. And I was telling him about how the animal chiropractic was just so much fun, and the results were incredible and amazing. And he said, "Well, what do you like most about it?" And I said, I think one of my favorite animals is the dog that's 7, 8, or 9, 10. And the owner, I convinced them to bring it in just to see if there's anything going on. And then you put your hands on the dog and you feel all that stuff that's going on. And that dog is going to respond amazingly well. And the next time that person comes through my door with their dog, which is usually a week later, they have a huge grin on their face because they're so ecstatic that the dog can now jump onto the bed again and do all these things, and it acts happier. And it's, you can't make someone happier than helping their pet. I can get rid of your sciatica, but you're paying me to do that, and you're expecting it to happen. If I improve your life or your pet and they're happier, you can't make a human happier than that.
Well, yeah, and we're seeing an increase in pets in two demographics. Over 40% of young couples, even though they're in committed relationships, married or not married, but in committed relationships, have chosen to have pets instead of kids.
Right. Yep.
And that number's getting bigger. And then the second place that we're seeing a big uptake in dog numbers is in empty nesters.
Sure. Yep.
They raised their kids, the kids left. What do we do now? Maybe there's a leftover kid's dog, that was kind of just maybe in the yard or whatever, but now all of a sudden, it's a kid.
They get their next baby. Yeah.
Yeah. And or they get a new puppy or whatever, but now now they have another kid, and we see that definitely. Those two demographics are huge, as they're still, the normal family, 2.2 kids and one dog and a cat, and
right.
That's still out there, but we're seeing a lot of new families too, the bigger families. And what did you say about, adding animal chiropractic? What did it do to your human practice?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I was saying, like, as a human chiropractor, if you wanted to do something to boost your human practice, is start doing dogs, because like I just talked about, you can't make someone happier than if you prolong their dog's life or make them happier. And I've had, I can't even count how many, but anybody that's not a patient of mine that brings their dog in usually decides to then become a patient of mine. There were I think the one person that said the funniest thing. They came back with that second visit and they're like, I can't even believe it. The dog had a torn ACL, but now it apparently doesn't have a torn ACL, and it's happy and it's doing all these things that it hasn't done in a while. And if you can do that for my dog, I need to make an appointment with you and see what you could do for me, So, and those are usually kind of your best human patients too. They're not in terrible shape. They get adjusted. They feel better. They decide they should probably do that once a month. And then I tell them, dogs hold their adjustments longer. So then they bring their dog every other month and they turn into wellness patients. But I was thinking about this dog thing and why they get so much out of one adjustment. And I really came to this as a concrete, I knew it all along. Like, it's not because they're on 4 legs instead of 2. It's not because they don't think as much as we do. It is, but they don't have the stress, right?
Right.
They're not stressed out. Hopefully they're eating okay. And they're not in a terrible relationship. All these things were, in trying to educate people on animal chiropractic. I live in a town of a lot of retired people, a lot of people that were experts in their field, and then they finally got to where they could retire in Estes Park. And all those people are Rotarians. And I was in the Rotary for a little bit when I first moved here. And I was like, these people are all conceited jerks. It's just a waste of my time. So my employee is a Rotarian, and she talks them into, for a long time, to let me come speak at the Rotary. So, of course, people here think that I just woke up one day and decided to do animal chiropractic. They're starting to figure it out as I spread the word, but they can't show favoritism at Rotary to one chiropractor over the other 3. And some of them, see my ex-business partner, and so whatever. But she finally talks them into it, and I'm swimming, exercising, thinking about it. I'm like, now what happens? Because I have been doing this 20 years, and which makes the dog thing and horse thing pretty easy to transition into. When one of these experts decides to challenge you on something like, the dog doesn't have to have, the dog may have some arthritis in its low back, but that doesn't mean it has hip dysplasia. That means it's something out of whack, and we can fix that. And arthritis doesn't have to hurt. And then someone's going to raise their hand and say, that's not true or something. And then I might just turn into the other me that I had died for 20 years, but apparently came back to life suddenly, and go after that person and be like, no, the reason your arthritis hurts is because you're overweight and you eat like shit, and you're in a bad relationship and you wish things had been different. You're stressed out. And the animals don't have that. So when you adjust them once, it's like 10 adjustments on a human.
Well,
It's incredible.
yeah. I mean, and the dog's biggest fear is I do think they fear abandonment, especially if they've been abandoned once.
Sure.
I mean, we have a dog here, Pink. Pink came here when she was less than a week old,
Yeah.
and we had her mother here for 6 years, I guess. But she was here with her 8 siblings, and we kind of things were going well, and the rescue that we had, were fostering for, said they found her a home, and so all the puppies left, and then they said, hey, Pink's home isn't really working out that well, and we said, well, we'll bring her back. And Robert, my son, it took him 2 weeks. He sat next to the pet taxi that Pink was in, and to get her to eat and come out and have some sort of confidence.
Yeah.
And she still, is the one dog that's like, I don't know. And when we leave, when we get home, you can tell that she's just like,
Thank
You're
goodness
back.
you came back. Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much. And so that's her biggest stress. But other than that, yeah, you're right. And then she's definitely, if Amy's here, my wife, she'll bark at everybody. She barks at Robert. She barks at me. Any noise she barks at.
Yeah.
But Dr. Amy was gone for a week, and I just didn't realize that Pink wasn't having to protect her.
Amy. Yeah. Dr. Amy.
And it was so quiet.
That's funny. I remember Pink. Yeah. She's a hoot.
And then Dr. Amy got home, and immediately, the first time Robert came down the stairs, oh, it's you, Robert. Okay, fine. And I was like, whoa, we hadn't had that for like a week while you were gone. And so, yeah, but I agree. The stress, and the second biggest stress that we see in animals is bad diet.
Right.
The kibble. And that's huge. But yeah. And, you're talking about pain, and even me. So, I fell down off of a 15-foot scaffolding and landed on one ankle, and pretty much was sure that I had broken bones. And if you'd have asked me before I looked at my leg, well, how do you think your bones looked? I'd have been like, oh yeah, they're sticking out.
Right.
But they weren't. And we ended up going to the chiropractor, and I was put 0 weight on it. It was like I had probably a 9.5 out of 10 pain scale. And laid down, he adjusted my spine and my pelvis and said, all right, let's go take a picture of your ankle.
Yeah.
And I stood up and went, why?
Really?
And he said, well, and he said, what? And he looked over at me, and I had all my weight on my sore ankle. And it probably was less than 0.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
And now I couldn't bend it very well. And so he did manipulate it to where I could bend it. And that tickled a little bit when he did that. But I literally took care of all my pain. And so pain is all perceived in the brain.
Yep.
And so if you have pain, it means there's an interruption. And this is Dr. Amy speaking, but there's an interruption in learned neural pathways. And anytime you alter neural pathways, like have a bad relationship,
Right.
retire, and find that old habits are not there,
Yeah.
you experience pain because you're having to develop new neural pathways
Yeah. That makes sense.
and new ways to cope with stuff. And so if you can stay adjusted through that period, you will adapt easier.
That better. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. That sounds like something out of BJ Palmer Green books. I thought about when we were talking about Pink, I've had several animals or dogs especially, have like some sort of emotional retracing release, like humans will have sometimes. You'll adjust someone and they start laughing uncontrollably, or they start crying and they have no idea why, because you're resetting that whole system. And it's really, really neat when it happens on a dog, and they do crazy stuff, or they act really weird for a second. And, I had this little tiny dog that's in my picture in the newspaper, Vinny, who's pretty spoiled. Vinny gets adjusted, probably every 2 weeks, just because mom saw how it helped and figures we might as well do more. That when people see what they see, is another wonderful thing about animal chiropractic for your business. If you're a business person, because you have to be if you're a chiropractor, you get that dog better, and some people will just keep bringing it in. You got to, you fine tune it, and of course it helps the dog. But Vinny and his mom were new to town, and they walked through an area of town you don't walk through with a dog at a certain time of year, which is in the spring when the elk are calving. And this cow elk chased them back and forth. They were going underneath the fence, and somehow they made it away without getting hurt. But little Vinny's little tiny, he's about this big, the white dog was going to protect his mom and attack that elk. Luckily, she was able to grab him and then dive under the fence and go back and forth as the elk tried to stomp him. And he's the happiest dog. He acts like a Labrador. He comes into the office and he goes and greets everyone, and he's just all over the place. He'll go, someone new comes in, he wants to go to the door, he goes and says hi to him, and then he'll come back to the room I'm working on his mom and come in. After that episode, he came in with his head hung low, and walked into the room, got under my bench, laid down, which he never does, and it was like total mental stress trauma. We got him out of there. I adjusted his atlas and a couple other things, set him down, and he went right back to being himself, just like that. I mean, that was cool.
Yeah, those things are kind of neat that they happen like that. So you're doing, I know we talked earlier about how you can, on your Thursday, sometimes you'll make, in a couple hours what you could do.
Yeah. I mean, in order to make this thing function in this big office here with all the bills that I have, I need to generate around $1,500 or went out 3 days a week. But yeah, I was telling the Dr. Bill, like I had one day where I made 2 stops for horses, and I left my house at 10 o'clock and I was back home by 2, and I made $1,000, and I didn't have any overhead at all. And we also talked about, and the best part about it is I didn't have any employees. I mean, I have one employee who will come with me to go work on the horses, and I don't pay her for it because she just wants to go see it, and she's a horse person. So, but I'd much rather drive around by myself in the car, or talk to my friends and family on the phone, catch up with them, make one stop, make $600, make another stop, make $400, go home. And if you don't have any overhead, you don't need to make any more money in a day, So
right, and you said you went the scenic route. I knew one guy that used to carry a fishing rod. In his
I thought about that actually on that day, because I was coming back and I would be going past the place I like to fly fish. So I actually contemplated it.
Yeah, he carries one in his truck.
Yeah,
he's there just in case.
You know what? The other than that, the emergency horse that couldn't lift its head up, I think that's the only emergency call I've gotten. And the best thing about, like, I'm thinking about starting a horse business in Wisconsin because I have a significant other who lives there, and I live in Colorado, and that's been going on for quite a while, and it's not going to change. So if someone calls you about a horse, if it's a human, they want to get in now, they maybe can wait till tomorrow but a horse, they've been noticing something for a while, and they call you on Monday and you say, okay, how about Thursday? They're like, okay, sounds great. Or sometimes they'll suggest, well, this Thursday's not that good. Let's do next Thursday. I mean, there's not this, you get to control your schedule much more when it comes to the animals because people are way more flexible. Even a dog, it's been bad for a while. You work on it once, it's going to be at least 50% better. You might need to see it again in a week, but you could also come back in 2 weeks and work on it again. And then it would get better, just because it's so much more effective on an animal that there's not that sense of urgency. They just know they need to do it sometime in the future. So,
well, I'm surprised that, so we have walk-ins only from 1 to 6 on Tuesday. And it's basically free spinal check day. So we will check your animal's spine for free, which is normally for a dog $75, for a horse $125, just to check their spine. Okay. Then if it needs adjusted, it's 75. So the spinal check is 75 and the adjustment is 75. So normally it's $150. However, on Tuesdays from 1 to 6,
75.
75.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised how many. Well, I don't know if we can wait till Tuesday. Okay, we'll just go to the website, click on a time that works for you, schedule an appointment. Just so you know, it will take your credit card information and it will charge you the day of the appointment. No refunds, and it's $150. So I thought you said it was 75. Well, it is on Tuesdays from 1 to 6, but
otherwise
that's free spinal check day.
Yeah.
And I think I have an opening in my schedule on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I think we can wait till Tuesday. I think we'll be fine. All right. We'll see you Tuesday.
I know. And luckily I'm old enough that I finally got to a point where I started setting boundaries, and being done earlier so I can have that high-powered human energy, and then eventually scale that back to where then in the afternoon I can go drive around and adjust horses, because you don't need the same type of energy for an animal. They want you to be chill and relaxed and enjoying the day.
Yeah, and boundaries. I found that we set boundaries, but then for a price, everybody should have a price.
Right.
And if you say yes, well then my price wasn't high enough. So I had a gentleman that told me that the only day that he could get his horses adjusted was on Friday evening. Well, that's football.
Right.
That's high school football. My son's on a championship team.
You tell me you got to miss a game to do your horses? Yeah. What's the price on that? $2,500?
Well, so I said, well, you'll have to haul them in. And there's a bank parking lot right across from the football field. And I could do them at halftime, because you could go in there, and as long as you're a customer, so you go to the ATM machine and get cash out of the ATM machine, you're a customer. So you could be in that parking lot. I can walk over at halftime, adjust your horses, and it would be $600 a horse. He said, okay, 2 horse minimum. He said, okay, can I bring 3?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
So then you made $1,800 on halftime. That's great.
Yeah, I missed a lot of halftime shows.
I may have to go to a homecoming game tonight, actually. My daughter's in cheer. I have twin 6th graders. So we've got a volleyball game, and then dropping off something at the school. The cheer person told me that she was going to ask Coral if she wanted to cheer for the football game. So I might be going to football.
Yeah.
tonight,
Well, cool. That'd be fun. Yeah.
It might be fun, although it's nice to get them in bed sometimes on time so that we can get up in the morning. But
so we talked about some, your education that you got at ACES, and how did that go for you?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I was talking to Dr. Bill the other day, or he called me to check in, make sure I was educating the public, and I've taken an assessment on that, and I'm pretty much hitting it head on as much as I can. But I had gone to another type of continuing ed place and learned some interesting things, and realized that this method, that the technique, I guess there's no names for these techniques. In human chiropractic I do Gonstead, but I do a whole bunch of other stuff that I figured out. But the way that you guys teach it is it works really well, and it's really specific. So
we call it show me.
It's also
we call it show me chiropractic, show me animal chiropractic.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about what you had said to me too then about you guys really put a lot of emphasis on making sure that you're safe while doing this.
Uh-huh.
And then I was thinking about that because I learned something, if you're checking reflexes on or using reflexes on the horse and it seemed a little hyper reflexive, the way these other people taught you to adjust the lumbar, which is trigger the reflex on either side of the spine and then drop in. It kind of helps because it moves it forward a little bit. But there was one horse where I did that and it helped whatever I was on adjusted easily. But then the horse dropped to the ground on all fours and I'm laying on top of the horse. And now I'm like, had it done that and I was up, it would have dropped and come back up. Now I'm laying on the horse and I'm thinking, I'm really glad that I'm in the arena because if this thing goes up that way or up this way, I'm going to go for a little flight and hope the landing will be softer here, which is why I picked this area. But anyway, so I thought about the whole safety aspect and I'm like, yeah, no, there's a reason to keep my shoulders strong. Maybe I'll just stay standing up.
Yeah. So yes, it definitely, some of this stuff is easier. There are easier ways to do it, but not any safer way to do it.
Yeah, no. And the specificity of some of the, there were certain things that I'm in Colorado, so I didn't do the ABC licensure because why would I? But some of the things that you guys just breezed over, like why would you take a horse's head and snap it straight down to the abdominal occipital joint? Like if I was my horse and I saw you do that to it, I'd be like, well, hey man, I'm not sure you should do that. Why not figure out what direction the atlas has gone and fix it opposite that direction instead of like, I don't know. Anyway, I like how there's certain things that you guys already realize, like you don't want to do this on anybody's horse. Let's just breeze past that. That's how you would do that if you got asked that question, and this is how we do it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, yeah. Thanks. What else? What would you tell any chiropractor that was thinking about adding animal chiropractic to their program?
One, like I mentioned, it's super good for business because you fix the animal and the human comes in. But it's a whole different, it's so much fun, and it's so rewarding that it will bring life back to your chiropractic practice, because you get all these miracle patients and you're reminded of all the stuff you learned in chiropractic school, because now you get to see it not on every 20th human patient or something. It's like almost every time that it's a miracle, and you can't make anyone happier than, fixing their animal. If you're a chiropractor, you're hopefully in it to try to improve people's lives. And there's nothing more powerful than doing that. So
yeah,
I would say sign up and go.
All right. It's a big investment.
Dr. Bill, I would also tell them that on the last in-person time in exam, I asked one of the younger people, and I don't condone this, but how is it that some of you guys get done with this test in 45 minutes and some of us it takes an hour and a half? And the young guy looks at me, he goes, "You never heard of Quizlet?" And I'm like, "What?" And, yeah. Took me a little longer. Or how in the hell do you do this in 3 months? But I guess overstudying is always a good way to go.
Yep. And big investment. Did you get your return on investment back?
Oh yeah, I think I have. Yeah, I was thinking while I was driving down here, I recently had gotten divorced, so I had and then my truck got stolen while I was at animal chiropractic training. And I have kids, so I needed a reliable vehicle. So I was thinking I probably bought that Volvo with the money that I earned over 2 years just adjusting animals, because it was just sort of left over in my bank account, and haven't had that problem before.
Huh.
So
yeah,
yeah,
cool.
no. And if I were to, like those, if I had just gotten done with veterinary school or chiropractic school and started right into this, and threw all my energy into it instead of just letting it kind of grow on its own and do all word of mouth and talking to everyone and getting results, I could be making a lot more than I am. But I kind of at my the universe sort of gives you what you need and what you want and what you can handle. I'm kind of right there, just towing the line. And then winter will come, it slows down a bit in town here, so I'll probably do some proactive things as far as public education.
Yep, cool. All right. So if I'm in Estes Park area and I need to get my animal adjusted, how do I get a hold of you?
Well, you get online and look for Animal Chiropractor in Estes Park. And even though I have some of my patients say, when I get on your website, it looks like you might only do animals. I'm like, that's kind of how it's supposed to look. Sorry about that. So you'll notice right away when you click on the different websites. Otherwise, I'm Grant Spencer. I'm at 930 Big Thompson Avenue in Estes Park, Colorado. My phone number is 970-646-6217.
All right. Thank you so much for your time today. Everybody out there listening, remember, animals heal one way only, above, down, inside out. Keep those atlases adjusted.
Rock on.
All right.
All right.
If you are or know a veterinarian or chiropractor, or a student of either of these professions, visit our website, Animal Chiropractic Education Source, to see how to become certified in animal chiropractic. Start improving the lives of the animals around you. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to the ACES channels so that you never miss an exciting episode.